after, and again, we're still talking about it because the events last Wednesday will have some impact, I think, on the UK, but it's not really clear about how they're going to play out. Now, the big question always is Boris Trump? And I think the absolute answer, yes. Boris is exactly like Trump. He has a lot of the very Trumpian qualities. And the worrying thing is come next election, let's say Boris loses, what if Boris employs the same tactics and gets his supporters riled up? Because we know in this country the far right are very happy and willing to do violence. There hasn't been a single far right protest in this country that has not involved violence in some way, shape, or form. And unfortunately, that's the truth, and that is something that we in this country are going to have to watch out for in the coming years, and that we are going to, if Boris does anything like this whatsoever, we are going to have to sweep in very, very quickly and stamp it out as fast as we possibly can. Because otherwise, our democracy has already, taken a severe beating because not of again, the current Tory party, but because of Brexit as well. Like I say, there is a lot of anger in this country, but it is not being pointed at the people who they should be angry at. A lot of these people generally voted to leave the EU because they were told that the EU was the source of all their problems. It wasn't. It was the Tory government who have had over 10 years of austerity. You go talk to any leaver, you talk to them about the problems they are facing. None of them were to do with the EU. But the EU was always a convenient excuse that many Conservative politicians used. Boris Johnson, the literal originator of many of the Eurosceptic lies that we have seen for the past 40 years almost. They can be traced right back to Boris Johnson. And we have to seriously ask this question of what happened on Wednesday, could it happen here? And the answer is yes. Let's not kid or delude ourselves. It could always happen here. In fact, we're going to go over a really good article today from the guys at Zello. Well, the guy at Zello Street. Again, go give him a visit. Very good news pundit. Because I think he gets it exactly right. And there are already people who were asking that question. And in fact, it seems, as we're going to go over today in the article, they're already trying to cover up the fact that actually, yes, Boris is more like Trump than a lot of people would care to admit or like, and has been, we'll get into it, but don't worry. Yeah, again, it's something that we need to worry about. But as always, before we jump into it, please do hit that like and share button. And of course, down below, there's a link to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link. And thank you very much to the people that do follow me and support me like that. So, on with this. Like I say, it comes from Zello Street. And, of course, the title of the article is Bozo, Not Like Trump. Oh, yes, he is. As the horror at Wednesday's acts of violence and insurrection in Washington, D.C. has turned to anger and incitement of all of it by the comb-over crybaby Donald Trump, some in the UK are asking that question out that those on the right would prefer that they not do. Just how like is Trump to alleged Prime Minister Alexander Boris de Piffle Johnson? And if Trump reacts like this to losing office, will Bozo and his radicalised supporters do likewise? We know the question is being asked because it is already being rebutted. But here a problem enters. The pundit selected to bat for Bozo is just a little too obvious. Also, his stick should convince no one. The obvious part is that James Forsyth has been sent out to bat for Bozo. His wife, Allegra Stratton, is a spokesperson for Johnson. Moreover, is that the Murdoch Times, which is carrying the propaganda headline, Johnson is not Trump transatlantic twin. The Prime Minister has a lot in common with the President, but our party system is safeguarded against toxic populism. So, how did that toxic populism propel Johnson to power in December 2019 then? Again, it's just so ridiculous when you, like I say, and I have gone and tracked down that original article, and it's fantastic and wonderfully stitched together bunch of lies, but here we go. Also, our party system, as Forsyth puts it, was not safeguarded against his pals in our free and fearless press and their hangers-on, effectively deciding who should govern the UK after the 2010 election resulted in a hung parliament, or indeed after the 2017 contested ending similarly. Forsyth's presence is a drafty glasshouse that was soon rumbled. Mick Wright was dismissive. How do I know, he said. I ask my wife, and then I ask my best friend Rishi Sunak, who says his boss is brilliant. And Matthew Goodwinson, shameless crawling. Good piece on lazy Boris is Trump nonsense. I'd go further. Johnson is a social liberal at heart. Trump is an authoritarian. Johnson is an instinctive free trader. Trump is a protectionist. Johnson is pro-migration at heart. Trump is a xenophile. All that fell flat. Indeed, as Seb Dance put it, if he's pro-Brexit, then he's not pro-migration. If he's anti-single market, he's not a free trader. And if he's willing to fan the flames of nationalism, then he's not socially liberal. John Wolfe concluded, think tank grifter employed by an institute close to the Tory right compels puff-piece journalism by the husband of Johnson's press secretary and is categoric about what Johnson thinks when there's plenty of evidence to the contrary. This is UK political debate. The reality is that Trump and Boris are too alike, and that's what Forsyth had to put out in his preamble. But both are appallingly vain, downright to the Trump hair weave, and Boris roughing up his hair to disguise the onset of male pattern baldness. Both are needy and narcissistic, craving attention and praise, and not wanting to hear criticism. They have lived their lives without someone there to stand up to them and say no. That is why Boris has surrounded himself with a cabinet of sycophants appointed because of their loyalty to him and not for their competence. It is why he, like Trump, is swayed by the last voice in his ear. It is also whispered quietly why the crawlers in our free and fearless press and elsewhere in the media class must devote so much time to shoring up the great myth of the great leader, a reincarnation of Churchill, which is complete and total bunk. Boris Johnson is indeed like Trump, which is another reason why we are completely, totally screwed. And again, yeah, I completely agree with Zello Street there, 100%. Johnson is more like Trump than we care to admit. We have to be worrying of what if Johnson pulled a similar stunt. It's very true what was also written there, that when we had those two hung elections, both in 2010 and in 2017, ultimately was the press that had a very large, unfortunate influence as to who got, the final say in those elections, who, led the way. And fortunately, the press in our country, especially the right-wing press, does have a lot to answer for many of the unfortunate states they're in. Very often they are acting as cheerleaders and very often the propagandist arm of a very now right-wing Tory party that this year is going to be desperate in any way, shape it possibly can to try and prove that Brexit is somehow a success. And the thing is, at the moment, the wheel on the cart ain't as steady as they like to admit it is. And of course, it's still very early days, but you've already got fishermen who are looking at either going out of business or just haven't been out as many times as they normally would be this year because there is no point going out to catch fish because they literally cannot afford the expense to export them to the EU where 80% of their catch would normally go. And, there's going to be many more things to come. And as I said, there will probably be many unexpected things to come. There are things that we couldn't even predict. But a lot of the cover-up, and, they got lucky with the coronavirus. They are breathing a massive sigh of relief because a lot of the damage of Brexit can be very easily covered up by, this coronavirus and the downturn from that. But when the uptick starts to occur and everyone else's economy is returning to normal, ours will be, stagnating. And that's when I think the knives will be out for Johnson. It's asked the question before of, will I think Boris will leave? I think somehow Boris is going to survive. I really do. Boris has this cockroach-like ability to survive, a nuclear bomb. I think he's going to survive somehow, unless the May elections, which I think could be the warning bell for the Tories, unless the May elections completely wipe the Conservatives from the map. I think we're going to see Boris, unfortunately, around for a lot longer than some people thought that he might be around for. So, with that said, as always, thanks for watching. Please do remember to hit that like and share button on your way out. And of course, down below, there is a link down below to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link. And thank you very much to the people that do support me that way. And as always, we'll see you all next time.